I had a neighbor who was an Ecuadorian gang member, and his gang was across the hall from me. They were called the Ready to Die Now gang, and I was always
Like
like,
that
I'm
that
more
was the
like,
name?
yeah, they were RDN, and I'm like, I'm RDL, like ready to die later, not now,
Not right now.
like much later.
Welcome to Talk Jewish to Me, brought to you by Aish, which is the show that discusses important issues like Jewish identity, spiritual growth, raising a Jewish family, and more. We're your hosts, Ladero and Danielle Harts, and we are so excited to have you here.
Whether you're a returning listener or a first-time listener, we want to thank you for joining us. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and like this video on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform. And let us know what you think about this episode in the comments. We are so excited to be interviewing Daniel Lobell. So in this episode, we talk about a lot of stuff. We talked about family, his career, how did comedy play a role in his life, and him going back to his Jewish roots. So lots of things, even marriage, he points on, and animals.
Daniel started the first comedy podcast to feature interviews with comedians, and he spoke to over 1,000 of them. He has a podcast bus. He does a comedy and philosophy podcast featuring some of the industry's biggest names. And he's been on This American Life, TEDx, talking about owning chickens, roosters, and a whole bunch of farm animals. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Daniel Lobell.
Hey, and a father of kids, but yeah, that's a great
Of
intro.
course.
It's
I
funny
think
'cause,
he's
like,
so fascinated with the chickens and
the
roosters,
chick-
right? We forgot about the
it's not,
kids.
it's everybody. It's everybody.
It's the most fascinating thing I've ever heard. How do you guys just make it happen in LA, having all these animals? Do you guys get complaints
Yeah, that's
or?
impressive.
We got complaints when we had roosters recently, and it breaks my heart. It's the second time I've had to get rid of roosters.
Oh
Uh,
no.
when I lived in Brooklyn, I had a neighbor who was an Ecuadorian gang member, and his gang was across the hall from me, and they were called the Ready to Die Now gang, and I was always
Like
like, I'm
that
more
was the
like,
name?
yeah, they were RDN, and I'm like, I'm RDL, like ready to die later, not now,
Not right now.
like much later. Long story short, but I became friends with the head Blanco. They're all called Blanco in the gang. I
Yeah.
became friends with the head Blanco, and then he and I got a chicken and a rooster together. And the rooster caused a lot of problems in Brooklyn and got complaints, and we had to find a new home for him, and that was a whole story. But
So
yeah,
I want to say this.
Mhm.
I'm looking at your background. Okay,
Yeah.
you got to tell me this isn't just the background, right? You didn't just set this up. Like this is like you're in a legit bus right now, right?
this is a school bus that's parked in my backyard, and it's converted into a podcast studio. And
That
I
That's
is
produce
epic.
awesome.
podcasts for whoever wants to hire it. You can go to thepodcastbus.com and book it. And either
Wow.
you could come here and record, or we'll go to you on location.
That is
The mobile
epic.
studio. So
How did this start? I've never heard of anything like this, and I've never seen anything like this.
it was something I was wanting to do for a while. Then one went up for sale, and it was pretty set up. I thought, anyway. I thought, oh, this is pretty good to go. Like, this was my idea. Now they're selling it. So I bought it. It kind of looks aesthetically like it did when I bought it, but it functions much differently. So
Got it.
I kind of kept the aesthetic. I like the way it looked. I just
Uh,
didn't like the way it worked. So it
Hey,
works now.
you giving me the vibes. Like right now, the way you just sitting back, chilling with the little lights on it, with the couch.
We're loving the whole bus podcast vibe. I love that. Especially nowadays, you see people who are just like transforming these buses into homes, and people are getting super creative. You're seeing people do things with vans. I'm like, it's something that we love because I'm like, how
Yeah,
cool.
we
Like
like
you
that
can
type of stuff.
travel and have this cool like bus on wheels. Like, we do have a question for you. I mean, we read that you started the first podcast to feature interviews with comedians, Comical Radio in 2004. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, it was started in my college radio station at Baruch College at City University of New York. I didn't really want to go to college in general. Just wanted to be a comedian, but I
Mhm.
did it to appease my parents. So then I found my crew at the radio station. That was like my happy place. it was a very cool, very diverse crowd at the radio station, and we all had in common that we liked the radio station, and none of us really cared about anything else at the school. I started podcasting out of that radio station.
I want to kind of transition a little bit and kind of talk about you being an Orthodox Jew in the comedy industry. Like, how do you balance this? How does that work?
Doesn't seem like a big difference, but I consider myself an observant Jew because I'm Sephardic, and
Yeah,
I don't know. We don't really have Orthodox,
Right.
conservative, Reform, and Sephardic. We're just, different levels of observance. But
got it.
you put it to people who, in an easy way to understand, I just always go with it when people say Orthodox because, yeah, I am essentially Orthodox if you look at it that way. So,
Okay,
Mhm.
got you.
but I don't use the term. But I just say I'm an observant Jew because
Mhm.
I observe the Jewish things. Like,
Mhm.
and everybody to some extent is an observant Jew, and I kind of like that better because it's like we're all on a journey, and hopefully we can all like observe more and take on more and enjoy and improve our life with doing more.
Yeah,
I like
I
that.
So
agree.
like that's just, I don't like to like segment it in terms of oh, I'm different than that Jew who's,
Right.
because I'm Orthodox. It's just like to go with the Aish analogy, like I just sparked up the fire inside of me more.
Mhm.
And it's in them too. It's in all of us. And like
Mhm.
you can do that. And so when someone hears and they go, "Oh, he's an Orthodox Jew." No, I'm not really any different than you.
Beautiful.
I just ignited the flame more, you know?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
we're not different, but um I got I got I kind of converted to Judaism in a way, I like to say, because I was totally not observant in my 20s, and I was dating not Jewish women, and my girlfriend who lived with me was not Jewish,
Okay.
and you interviewed her. I mean, and she's my wife. She's my wife now.
Yeah.
Anyway, she wanted to convert to Judaism, and I was like really against it because I had a bad experience with religion growing up,
Mm.
and it's also very different when you're older. And I would encourage people, if they're listening and they had a bad experience with religion growing up,
Mhm.
to try and re-examine it with adult eyes, because a lot of the things that we experience as kids that are sort of put on us, and uh the relationship we have with adults and authority as kids is very different than when you're an adult. I
Mhm.
wound up being very resistant to my wife converting. Long story short, she winds up going to a Orthodox conversion, and I decide I'm gonna blow it up, and I'm gonna go in there, and I'm gonna get in a big fight with the rabbi and get her thrown out, and that'll be the
Oh,
end of that.
wow.
Yeah, she didn't tell you that?
No, we
No.
didn't hear that part.
Oh, yeah, I haven't heard hers yet. So I did do that. I went in and I just like went off about all the things I was mad about religious Judaism and all this stuff. And I thought the
Mm.
rabbi was going to be like, "Get out of here and take
Yeah.
your girlfriend with you, and you're out. You're done. You're banned from Judaism." I'm like, "God, I don't want to be here anyway,"
Yeah.
And then, but instead, he was like the kindest, warmest, most disarming person in the world, and he was just like, "You have every right to be upset about the things that you're
Ah.
upset about, and
Hmm.
I wouldn't blame you at all if you never wanted to come back here, but this door
Mm.
is always open to you, and if you want to give it another try and have like a warm and different experience with it, it's available to you, but I totally understand if you don't want to come back." And I was just like, "Whoa, I didn't expect that to happen."
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna blow it up. So
Right, right.
I left, and a few weeks or so, maybe a month or two later, it was still like kind of hovering with me, and I was like, all right, let me go back and check that out with
Mhm.
her. And so I started going to the conversion classes with my wife,
Mm.
Oh,
and in
very
doing
nice.
so, I kind of discovered or rediscovered the beauty in Judaism for myself. And so I like to think in a way that I converted to Judaism as well, because I got into it through Jewish conversion classes, and I was
Yeah.
Yeah.
like anti-religion. I was really
Mm.
like anti-religion at that point. Um, weird because sometimes I hear like old interviews with myself from those days as a comedian, and I was just like, yeah, religion sucks and this, and I
Yeah.
was just like, wow, imagine, if I'd seen myself then where I'm at now, like I'd be
Yeah.
like, wait, what happened?
Yeah.
So,
Like, who's this guy?
so yeah, I mean, how do I navigate it in the comedy world? It was very hard for a long time. First of all, there's this concept of sort of like, I'll use the term transitioning because I was transitioning from a anti-religious person to somebody who's like kind of agnostic about religion to somebody who likes religion to somebody who loves their religion,
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so in that whole process, to be authentic as a comedian on stage and talk about religion was a very difficult thing for me because I wasn't really sure really where I stood on it all for a while. It was all kind of murky territory. And then I didn't really want to, like, it's hard to like all of a sudden present the new you to the world too. Like,
Mhm.
you don't want to, I don't want to be cheesy or lame about it. I just want to be, a comedian. It wasn't like the objective was to be a Jewish comedian. It was just to be a comedian. And I like to talk about the way I observe life and the world. And that's
Mhm.
still
Right.
how I feel about it. I don't need to magnify one aspect of my life for comedy's sake.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, I almost feel to an extent that I don't like to magnify the Jewish stuff because I do have reverence for it. I don't want to make
Mm.
fun of Jewish
Got it.
stuff
Got
That's
it.
beautiful.
because it's very serious to me.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think as a comedian you can't have things that are serious to you. Like
Mhm.
Hmm.
you're a comedian, I think. I mean, there's different kinds of comedians and people have different philosophies on what it means, but I think a comedian is their job is to obviously to make people laugh, but to be thought provoking, to kind of observe the world and point out the absurdities. I don't see absurdities in Judaism. I don't think it's absurd. So I don't make fun of it.
I
Where
love
I
that.
do see absurdities, I make fun of what's absurd. There's plenty of absurd stuff in the world.
That's
Facts.
true.
Big facts.
So like that's what I gravitate towards as a writer for comedy. I don't have an agenda when I write comedy. I'm not like, let me sit down and write comedy on this. I
Mm-hmm.
just when I see something that's funny to me, I'm like mental note and then actual note,
Mhm.
that this is funny and I should present this as funny. So it's not really agenda driven comedy. So like in terms of it was difficult like I to figure out like first you want to figure out your perspective as your perspective changes on the world and you're going through that transition in terms of changing the way you see the world. What I did is I kind of just froze my comedy at a certain point where I'm like, all right, I want to just do these jokes and continue just doing them until I figure stuff out, which I did for a
Right.
while before I started
Right.
writing again. And then I started writing, based on how I see the world now. And the thing that's been difficult about it was I had to give up most of my career that was making me money, which was
Mm.
touring and doing weekends
Yeah.
because I didn't want to, and I still, I won't work on Shabbat. I don't
Yeah.
think it's and then people are like, oh, there's ways around it. And there are ways around it. And some comedians do that. And I have lots of respect and love for them. And I understand it. But to me, I don't do Shabbat because I have to do Shabbat. I mean, I do feel like I have to do Shabbat, but I don't do it because I have to do it. It's because I love to do it, because I want
Mhm.
to do it.
Yeah.
So for me to like find workarounds, I'd be getting out of doing the thing that I want to be doing. It made no
Sure.
sense.
Sure.
Like why would I be even doing Shabbat if I'm trying to get out of doing Shabbat?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
No,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely.
So now I've sort of started figuring out ways to perform without doing Shabbat. It still hasn't taken off back to the point where I'm making the money I was making,
Mm-hmm.
and my career isn't escalating at the rate that it was, but that could all change in a moment because I
100%.
believe in God, and I believe if God decides, okay, you're ready and this is the time, could happen tomorrow in the most absurd of ways.
Boom.
You don't really have to go a traditional route on anything.
Absolutely.
So, but it took me a long time to gain that perspective too. So there was a time when it was very frustrating for me because I was like banging my head against the wall. I'm like, why would God want me to do things that are like causing me to give up everything I worked towards for so many years? And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had this career, and it is ultimately, it's clearer to me now that I have a better quality of life. I'm happier. I have a lot more inner peace. Um, I have kids, which I never would have done. I never would have had kids. I didn't think I even wanted kids. I was pretty sure I didn't want to ever have kids. So that was a big shock to me when I found out that that's like the most fun thing in the world
That's
in
right.
life.
That's right.
So I guess the answer to your question of how to navigate the world as an Orthodox comedian is you have faith and you figure it out.
Yeah.
You get clever, you find different ways to do things, you get a bus maybe, you start writing autobiographical
Yeah.
comic books, which I do, and selling them on the internet, fairenoughcomic.com for
Hmm.
another source of revenue. You podcast, moderndayphilosophers.com, and you start playing Chabads, and you start playing occasional shows in theaters here and there when you can on a Monday or on a Thursday, private gigs.
Hmm.
I don't know, I've been emailing some like famous comedians that I know recently and asking them like, you ever have a Monday at a casino or anything that I could come out and open for you? And because
Yeah.
I don't have a big enough following to do that on my own right now,
Gotcha.
to sell out theaters. But you make a movie. I made a documentary, reconquistadormovie.com, which is
Yeah, we saw that.
you saw the movie?
No, well,
We
we
saw the
saw
trailer.
the trailer of it.
The
Yeah.
trailer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I
very
have this
fascinating.
movie out, and I've been touring with the movie and doing film festivals and
Oh, cool.
um screenings, and I'm always trying to figure it out. And
Yeah.
in the meantime, thank God I'm making a living. I am able to pay rent. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. I'm not super wealthy or anything right
Mm.
now in terms of money, but
Right. Right.
uh in terms of quality of life, very much so.
Ladero and I, we can relate to a lot of what you said. And it's interesting how Hashem will like work out things or how he does certain things. Cause it's like you said, in an instant, everything could change for you. But it's like who you are becoming throughout all of this and the humility that you have and the most important things that you see. You value the most important things that are it's Shabbat, it's family, it's kids,
Yeah.
right? And I believe that he honors that. And that's similar things that we had to kind of go through as well. But it's beautiful to hear that from another person and to know like it's faith at the end of the day. I just have to have faith and know that I'm provided for and he will take care of everything and all of my needs. And
Yeah.
you have a roof over your head, you have a bus roof over your head, right? Like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Like you have that in your backyard. So it's like you got to find all the good in what you have. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
I mean, just kind of hearing about everything you got going on. I mean, you got the films, you got the comic books, you got, you're performing and all these different things. And then you have your wife as well. And with her incredible career, like how do you guys, manage family time, and just making sure that you're still investing there and growing the marriage with two busy lives.
Mhm.
Well, we just lock the kids in a shed. Is that not what you're supposed to do?
Boom. There you go. That's it. That's it,
Uh,
man.
well, no, I'm really blessed, and I'm very grateful to God for putting me together with my wife. Like, I have
Yeah.
an incredible, amazing, just beyond amazing wife. I am
Awesome.
I'm never take that for granted, and I completely am in awe of just the incredible person that God paired me with, because
Mm.
like you said, she has this incredible career. She's an amazing mom. She brought me back to God, so that's a pretty big deal.
That's a huge deal.
She brought me back to being at peace with myself, with being a Jew, and convinced me it was not easy to that I would be a good dad and that I should have kids.
Yeah.
That was not easy. I fought her on that for a long time, And then I finally gave in, and I was like, "Oh my God, you're right. I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
She, she, she's usually right. She probably wants me to say she's always right, but I'm not going to give her that. But
Yeah.
I've been right a few times, I could tell you. But we make it work. I mean,
Yeah.
they go to Gan during the day. There's this
Mhm.
amazing Gan in our neighborhood that they go to. Gan just means garden. It's like a garden of children. It's just a Hebrew term for preschool. One of us picks them up and brings them home and watches them until the other one comes home. And I mean, they're just my daughters. Again, thank God. I've been so blessed. They're so much fun.
Yeah.
They just make me laugh constantly. They keep me excited about life. And I mean, like, it is the greatest gig of all time, is being a father.
100%.
And it's funny because it's like also jokes that only you're in on. Like, a lot of them.
Yep.
Although I
Yep.
brought like one or two of them to the stage recently, and they kind of are doing pretty well. Should I run a joke by you guys? Like, most comedians would
Yeah.
be horrified to ever do that, but
Yeah,
I'll
go
do
for it.
a joke off the stage because it's what happened, and I worked it into material, and I started doing it recently. But my older daughter, she hurts herself on stuff around the house. Like, she'll hit her knee into the table or whatever. She has a lot of accidents, but she doesn't call them accidents. She calls them accidents, which I
Yeah.
love. It's like an excellent accident.
Excellent. Yeah, yeah.
Excellent, She's like, "Daddy had an excellent."
Yeah.
And then she like tattletales on the furniture to me. She'll be like,
Oh, that's
"Table did
beautiful.
it, Daddy. The table did it. Come and look."
That's cute.
So she shows me the table did it. And I'm like, "Uh-huh. What do you want me to do?" She was like, "Yell at it." So she's basically like this little mafia boss, and she's using me as like
Yeah.
muscle, like,
Mhm.
"Come on, rough it up, rough the
Yeah.
table up. You see what he did to me?"
Right, right.
So she's got me going around like disciplining furniture in our house, and like, and all these acts. And sometimes she hits her sister, and I'll be like, "Why'd you hit your sister?" And she'll be like, "It was an accident." I'm like, "That's no accident." So, but the other night she she comes in and she tells me, she's like, "Daddy, I can't sleep." And I'm like, "Why not?" She's like, "My toys are all talking to me." And I was like, "Well, if she wasn't 3, that would be really concerning, you know?"
Right, right.
So I'm like, "What do you want me to do?" She's like, "Yell at them."
Yeah.
So I had to go in at like 2 in the morning to her bedroom and start yelling at all her toys. And I'm like, "Listen, all Sophie's toys. I want another word out of any of you." And I'm like, "Is that good?" And she's like, "And tell them they're mean." I'm like, "The toys?" I'm like, "And you're all mean."
Yeah.
She's like, "Good, Daddy, and tell them they're mischief." That's how she says mischief.
Mischief.
She's like, "Tell them they're me."
Oh.
So I'm like, "And you're all mischief."
Me
Yeah, kids have the wildest imaginations and things that they come up with. I mean, we deal with it. We have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and just to see what our 4 and 2-year-old does, they are
It's
hilarious.
just
It's
comedy
all
all
day
day.
comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the time it's stuff that if you told someone else, they'd just be like, "All right,"
Yeah.
but it's so funny to you, right?
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
it's like a little mirror to your soul. You can sort of see into the deepest recesses of yourself through your children.
Oh,
And
yeah.
100%.
it's and you see that part of yourself. It's so funny, but it's
Yeah.
not
Yep.
funny to other people because it's not a mirror into their soul.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like just jokes for you from God
Yeah.
to you,
Yep.
Mhm.
delivered through the cutest means possible.
I love it. We appreciate, Aish allowing us to be able to have this opportunity to be able to connect with so many incredible people.
Mhm.
My wife and I, we're on a conversion journey right now. And it's just been one of the most epic journeys ever in so many different ways. But just with this aspect of our journey, with being able to interview so many different people from different backgrounds, it's all learning for us.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we've learned things from you, learned things from your wife, and we're just very, very grateful.
Very grateful. And we feel like we have like a whole set of friends. Like as we
Yeah.
get to, do these interviews, it's like, gosh, we're gaining friends and a new light. And just like he said, I think we're learning so much from each person and just learning their background, their story, how they were raised. It's beautiful to see that, especially for us going through a conversion process, to see different backgrounds and different ways that people just their stories and
Yeah.
what they're doing in their life. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys giving me the platform to tell it. And when I
Yeah,
was on
perfect.
the conversion journey with my wife, I remember them saying to us, "And the journey never ends." And I was
Mhm.
like mad about it in my head at the time. I'm like, well, that seems like a scam. Like, so it never ends, huh? Really?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah, yeah,
therapy or something. So therapy, it never ends. They just keep
yeah.
charging.
That's true.
But I'm like, well, I don't like that it never ends. I like when things complete. But talking about shifting perspectives, I think now the greatest thing about it is that it's a journey that never ends, because
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah,
it's a journey, not just a spiritual journey, but just a journey of personal growth.
100%.
Psychologically speaking, of course,
Mhm.
spiritually speaking, but also psychologically speaking, and in terms of again, perception of the world. As you continue to grow and hopefully continue to grow in that way,
Mhm.
life just gets sweeter because things are clearer. The more we have clarity in our life, I think the more we have peace of mind, because I mean, I personally am the most nervous when I'm going into something that I feel totally unprepared for.
Sure.
Mhm.
But but the more you feel like you're going into every day more prepared for life, the more you feel less nervous or anxious about life, the more you feel calm, and like you understand what your purpose is, and you understand
Yep.
what you're doing, and you understand how to interact with the world better.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I think that that's really the beauty of a spiritual journey, whatever the spiritual journey may be, that anyone who's listening to this, and I don't personally think it has to be Jewish. I happen to be Jewish, and
Mhm.
this
Right.
has been an amazing ride for me. But I think, whatever the connection that you are fostering with God is, whatever the vehicle is, if it's authentic and it's sincere, you're going to have that kind of experience. And that's a
Yep.
healthy thing to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have this new thing that we came up with called the Fast Five. So we have five somewhat random questions,
Mhm.
and we're gonna ask you these questions, and then you just gotta just go right off the top of the dome. Favorite comedian?
Probably George Carlin, Billy Connolly, or Woody Allen. I don't know. Maybe combine them all.
All right. Number 2, favorite animal at your home. I think we might know this.
I think it's my bird at this point.
Number three, favorite Shabbat meal?
Friday night dinner for sure. Friday night dinner is the chillest. I like how when it goes long and people are laughing around the table, and then if you're doing it at home, then you can just go conk out. I like that too, and the
There we go.
food is still hot from the oven. It's not blech food. It's
There we go.
Number 4, your most memorable moment was.
now I have to remember it.
And-
I mean, maybe getting married.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There we go. Points on the board.
Being under the chuppah and looking up, and I remember the clouds seemed like they were going in fast motion, and I thought, like,
Mm,
I remember hearing, that something about the heavens splitting open when you're under the chuppah, and like because
wow.
God is there with you too, and it was just this. It was so blissful. My family and Kylie and her family and our
Beautiful.
friends all around us, and the music and it was by the beach and the air and the tali like flapping above us, and the just like all of it was
Wow.
was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing.
Best part of being Jewish is
I think the people, I think the community, I think the relationships and with people, but it's hard to say. I mean, I could also easily argue the Torah,
Mm,
just having the Torah, the wisdom of the Torah, the beauty of it all, the songs, even the songs, the melodies
yeah.
of of the beautiful prayers and songs, I think it's all of it. I don't know. It's a very, very deep question that you're asking. It seems like a
Yeah.
quick one, but that's a very hard answer. There's so much wisdom to untap. Today I heard that an interesting story very briefly about someone's father who was experiencing vertigo and wound up dizzy. They didn't know what it was. They went to neurologists and they found out there was a hair that had grown in his ear canal that was throwing off his balance. And the Hebrew
Wow.
word for ears is oznaim, and it's also the word for balance. And the understanding that God has created balance for us in this world, based on what we let into our ears,
Mm.
what we take in. I mean, this is a podcast, so it's kind of really appropriate, and I just learned about it today. But like, what we bring into our ears has the ability to make us balanced, and it's also so literal that anything that uh,
Mm.
abrasion in our ear canals can literally throw off our balance. So, um, the thing that keeps us centered is the ears. And it's so important that like the information we take in is information that doesn't make us unbalanced, because there's so many negative things you can hear in the world. And there's so much anger and what we call lashon hara, which is bad speech,
Mm-hmm.
that you take in those things, it unbalances you. And I know that because I was unbalanced from negative things for a long time in my life. So the wisdom that's out there that you can, and I just learned that today, so there's so much out there that's exciting to find out,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe that's the answer.
I think that was a beautiful way to close out this incredible podcast. Daniel Lobell, you have been a tremendous blessing for us. You're not just a comedian. Like when you think you're talking to a comedian, it's like all jokes. But it was a very, very wholesome, meaningful. It was a deep conversation just to hear this wisdom from the Torah come out of your mouth. I can tell that you've really immersed yourself in this in this way of life, and it's very, very inspiring for us to be able to see that. Especially, just learning about your story, brother. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you for your time. We wish you and your family nothing but blessings and success in every single thing that you guys do.
Yeah.
Before you go, we would love for you to just share with everyone, how can people get in touch with you? How can people find you?
You can never find me. I don't exist. This was all AI. No, I have a website, daniellobell.com. I'm on Twitter at Daniel Lobell. I'm on Instagram at Daniel Lobell. And the number one thing I would encourage you to do is go to fairenoughcomic.com, which has links to all of that stuff. But most importantly, it has my comic books, which I'm very, very passionate about. They're all true stories from my life. They
Wow.
are different snippets of life that I remembered, and worked with a different artist on each one of them to make these books
Wow,
really
cool.
special. And they all tell different true life stories that are funny, sometimes touching, interesting, hopefully. And they're only $7, and they're available at fairenoughcomic.com. Now let me close out with a dirty joke. No, thank you guys for
Oh,
the opportunity. Thanks for having me on the show.
This interview was so much fun.
of course. And that's only what I expected. Episode 5 with a comedian.
With a comedian. He's, he's just the coolest guy. And he's not just a comic.
Right.
He's a very, very deep, grounded man.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Did you hear the wisdom that was coming out of his mouth?
Of course, when he talked about just the balance of in our ear and what we
Oh
hear,
my goodness.
that was powerful. Just to close on that, I mean, wow, and, that gave me goosebumps. And like you said, just to hear that wisdom, but and to hear, how he talked about, Judaism to him, like why,
Oh
what was
man.
his
Yeah.
special, um, the meaningful thing to him about Judaism. I think it was beautiful.
Yeah, it was very moving.
Mhm.
Very moving. Him talking about family, how he loves being married. He has the most incredible wife ever. And I love that. I can't wait to meet them in person.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
So make sure you guys follow Daniel Lobell. He has a website, daniellobell.com, where you can find everything he's doing. He's talented. He got the podcast buzz. He's a comic, and you guys want to follow Daniel everywhere. But check out fairenoughcomic.com and you get a chance to really see and really get a chance to get to know Daniel, because as he was sharing, these comics are glimpses and clips from his life. It's so cool. So,
and make sure that you guys subscribe to Aish's YouTube channel and Aish's podcast channel on Apple.
And also House of Lave, where you can find us on YouTube and all the other social media platforms as well. And I think that is a wrap.
Yeah, a wrap for episode 5.
Episode 5 is in the books. Thank you guys so much for your time, and we'll see you on the next one.